That means I can arrest
I'm
you.
under arrest?
Yep.
You got me some camera, sir, have you? I'm under arrest for what?
In you get.
What's up, agents, and welcome back to another Division video. It's happened. I've finally been busted. I got this comment. The gear set was nerfed on console from when it was released. Myself and others are starting to wonder if Massive is paying you to push lies. On console, when it was released, it didn't weigh more damage than it does now. The devs stated, no incoming nerfs, it is where we want it. Now, they did a stealth nerf and keep it a secret and was called out in it, and Yannick, to his credit, decided to own up to it. Now, I watch your video and you're lying, stating it wasn't really nerfed. Dude, come on, you're better than this. We aren't asking you to trash talk on the devs, but at least be honest. Or just stop making videos. Ugh. Now, this person clearly didn't watch the entire video, but I wanted to do a video on it because, one, I don't like comments like that. I feel like my channel is truthful. I try to provide facts. But what we're going to do, we're going to go a very quick recap of what happened, and then I'm going to show you some numbers. I'm also going to show you the very recent patch notes and why actually I think they might actually be a little bit misleading as well, and the damage calculations aren't exactly what everybody thinks. Well, some people do. I've had some comments of people who actually clicked when I did the last video how I came to the new damage calculations. But before we get started with all that, be sure to hit subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, hit the bell so you're notified when I upload more Division videos. Even better, come over to Twitch, hit follow. I could be streaming live right now and you can ask me any questions. And if you need a community Discord, there's never been a better time to join. You'll find the link in the description down below. Okay, so let's start with the patch notes. Heartbreaker damage bonus has been changed to be additive instead of multiplicative. And that's what we're going to focus on, because that doesn't actually read in exactly how I would have liked it to read. That doesn't make sense to me, and I'll explain why that doesn't make sense to me. So in my previous video I showed a little, I'll throw it up now, here it is. So this is the build that I've got on now, and you can see the bugged Heartbreaker, which was when TU15 launched. You can see the damage numbers for that, and you can see the new Heartbreaker, and you can see the damage numbers for what we get now if you play the game today. And that's exactly this build that you can see on screen. So not long after the patch went live this week, we saw this tweet on Twitter that we knew nothing about going into the maintenance. Today we are fixing a bug that was causing an unintended behaviour of the set. Instead of giving 100% bonus damage, it gave more due to the way the stacks were being applied. Our intention is for the set to behave as described in the text. I'm pretty sure it will still be strong, but if it turns out to be too weak, we'll buff it in a clear way, not by using cryptical mathematic formula. And this is what the previous person was trying to call me out on. So in the previous video, I explained this, that the set since the launch of TU15 hasn't been working as intended, because during the PTS, the set talent changed, and when that happened in PTS 3, we couldn't test it. There was a problem with it. It was crashing. They had to remove it from the PTS. But when that change was made, this accidental buff of the gear set was also made. So although the talent change was intended, the buff of how the damage was calculated was not intended. But I got called out for being a liar by saying that, and I'm a bit unsure to why. Because this is all facts of everything that's happened during the PTS and now in the live game. So let's take a look at the Heartstopper bonus, which is what's causing all this trouble. Headshots apply a pulse for 5 seconds. Weapon hits on pulsed enemies add a stack of 1% bonus armor, which is fine, and 1% damage to pulsed enemies up to a max of 50 stacks. And now we know as well, if you run the body piece, that can go up to 100%. Now, when we read the patch notes and we look at Yannick's tweet, you would then just think that is going to now be 100% additive damage. But it's actually not. So if we go down to the sacrifice, you can see here it says all damage you deal is amplified by 30%. So that's kind of telling you that all damage that you deal is going to be amplified damage, and you're going to get 30% of it. If I was understanding what Yannick is saying to me, I would assume that this is just going to be a flat out 100% weapon damage. But it's not. It's 100% amplified damage. Now, let me talk you through how it was working and how it is now, because it's not quite that straightforward. So if you was aware of how Strikers was working in the game, you'll be very aware of how Heartbreaker was working in the game. And before everything that happened with the patch, it's 100% multiplicative damage, but the stats were multiplicative of themselves. And now they're not, and that's the change that's actually happened this week. The damage is still 100% multiplicative damage, but they're no longer multiplicative of themselves. And what I'll do a really simple calculation here on the screen. So what you would imagine if you've got 100, say your weapon damage is 100. We're going to run this really straight down, not use actual in-game stats. And you added 1% damage to that. That was then going to be 101% damage. If your weapon damage was 100 and you had a 2% bonus, it's 102%. If it's 100 and you have a 3% bonus, it's 103%. And if that went all the way up to the max stats at 100, we would then have 200. Pretty straightforward, right? But when it comes down to it being multiplicative of itself, if them stacks were multiplicative of themselves, it actually works a little bit different. So 100 plus 1%, again, 101, dead easy. But then with multiplicative being multiplicative itself, it works a little bit different. The next sum would be 101 plus 1%. And then you can see why we ended up getting more damage. It's now 102.1. This is really small numbers. In the division, these numbers are much bigger, because you see them when they're flying off enemies' heads and you're hitting for crazy numbers. But you can see I've creeped up an extra 0.1 damage than I should already have. And then if we do 102.1 plus 1%, we've got 103.121. Again, it's creeped up a little bit more. And when I say they're being multiplicative of themselves, that is what was happening in the damage calculation. And what they've done, they've taken that away. So now you get a straight up multiplicative damage increase, but just the percent of wherever you are in the stack. So if you're at 50%, 50 stacks, you'll get 50% multiplicative damage. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's what I really wanted to clear up. But that doesn't really read in very well with what they put in the patch notes. Because the patch note says, oh, it's now additive damage. Well, it kind of is. It's 100% multiplicative damage with the talent bonus, which is then additive to the total damage. If that makes sense. And I'm hoping that does make sense. I can't really explain that any other way. So before the nerf, a really easy way we could have worked out how much damage bonus you were being applied, and anybody could do this, is you could bob into the range and you could shoot an enemy at 0 stacks. And you can take that damage number. Then what you want to do is get yourself to max stats using the invulnerable enemies and take your highest number. You then divide them by each other, and that's going to give you a result. Now that result then is going to be X amount of times higher than the lowest number. So what was happening before the change, you was actually at your start at the beginning, and then that damage number will be 2.7 times higher when you got to the end of your stacks, which equated to 170% amplified damage in total. Because like I said before, if you remember, them little extra bits all the time, because they're being multiplicative to themselves all the time. So you didn't end up with 100% multiplicative damage. You actually ended up with 170%. Now, if you want to see the actual calculation for this, I'll throw it up on screen now. It all looks a little bit mathy, and to be honest, I find it hard at times getting my own head around it, because the equation gets really, really big. Because what you've got to remember is you're putting in crit chance, you're putting in crit damage, headshot damage, and they've all got to be calculated in the correct positions. It can get absolutely bonkers, especially with a set like this that has changed now as well. But the maths that I'll throw up here again on screen, there is new Heartbreaker, and there is the original bugged Heartbreaker. That's the set you're seeing on screen right now. They're the damage numbers. That is how much things have changed. And that loss in the stacks being multiplicative of themselves, you can literally see in the damage numbers. So ones we would be concerned about would be ones on the right, because we're generally hitting harder armored enemies. And what you can see there is a head crit previously was almost 2.3 million. Well, it's now 1.7. And then you can see a head hit. A regular head hit was 1.174, and it's now 868. But as I showed in the previous video, and please do go and check that out because I compare it to a lot more other things, this is still the best set in the game for damage wise, and it still beats out a high end. And I do a lot more in-depth testing in that video, so do go and check that one out. But that is going to be it. I hope I explained the changes. I hope it made sense. I really did try to communicate it. I'm not the best when it comes to explaining maths. I do understand it, but getting it down and on paper and trying to help other people understand it is a little bit difficult. So by all means, drop over to the Discord if you want to ask me any questions, or come over to Twitch and ask me when I'm live there. I really don't mind. Hit subscribe here on YouTube and hit the bell again so you're notified for more Division videos. And hopefully in the next one, I won't be called a liar in the comments. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.